let's say a client comes to you and they want a database built. So you spend like a couple weeks working with them building out this database. And then you go ahead and deploy it, and their users start logging in, creating records. And the client comes back to you and they say, hey, we really like this, but we need some new features. We need to implement some new things. I think a lot of us are used to kind of just logging straight into the production file when we make our changes on the live server. And I think for the most part you can get away with that. You run into problems when you start to scale up, though, if you do that. Some examples are like if you're like modifying field definitions, you can sometimes actually lock a table. And what if a user tries to run a script that creates records in that table while you have it locked? You could potentially create records or not create records. You're kind of like leaving your system in an unknown state, which can be difficult to recover from. Some other examples are, if you need to change if you've got like a couple million records in a table and you need to change one of the field types from like text to number, if you're fully indexing these fields, that can actually take a long time. And sometimes you need to take the file down off the server. This kind of leads to downtime. Right, for the most part, you can get away with working in production, but you eventually get to a point where it's not really safe anymore. So the other option you could do is make all of your changes in a development copy of your file. So basically you'd have like a copy of your production file locally or on some development server, or hosted on the same server and just name something different. And you add your layouts, your script changes, your kind of altered business logic there. You make your implementations there. And and that's cool because you can actually turn that over to the user, have them test these things out before they go into production. And so once that's kind of working good and you actually want to deploy this to production, now you've got a problem. You've got all of your development changes in one file and all of your production data in another file. And so this is exactly the problem that 360Deploy is meant to solve. It's going to take the changes in your dev file, merge them with the data in your production file, and it actually will also, move this migrated file onto your server, open it for hosting, so everything is just kind of seamless. So why don't we jump right in and I can kind of show you guys kind of how it looks. Cool. All right, that's great to hear. I hope we, I kind of want to go through the configuration process here. It's all really straightforward because when you think about it, the data points you need for something like this, it's really small. We just need to know where's the dev server, where's the dev file, where's the prod file, some usernames and passwords, and then that's pretty much it. So I've already got my configuration kind of set up here. My dev server is local. This is my dev file. My prod server is also local. I have my dev file on the same server as my production server. And if I come to the deploy tab, I can actually see the full deployment we're about to run here. So on my prod server, I'm going to deploy my dev file to my production file. So before I do that, let's kind of go in here. This is the dev version of my file. And I'll go ahead and open up the prod version as well here. So this is the production version of our file. This is the one where users are logging in and creating records. So let's go ahead and create a record for this. And just to sort of simulate a user coming into the production file, creating records. And then on the dev file, let's say that the client just was really picky and said they didn't like this color green, so they want a purple header here. Additionally, just to kind of show you guys what we're working with, I mean, this is I like using this database for deploy. It's a really good test case. We've got about 500,000 records probably total in this whole database. And this is actually the back end for our online store. So this database has grown naturally over about 20 years, making it a really good test case for deploy. So got my record in my prod file, got my layout changes over here. I'm actually going to close the prod file. Part of the process of deploy is you need to kick the users out of the prod file so you can actually close it. So if you leave it open, sometimes you can get kicked out. So with my configuration set up, let's just go ahead and deploy. The first thing that it's going to do is actually get a clone of the dev file and zip that up, upload it to the production server. Once it's on the production server, we can start running the migration. And we're leveraging the new FM Data Migration Tool, so things are just really fast. I mean, 500,000 records in probably like about a couple minutes here. Once the migration is done, we're going to move the migrated file back onto the server, open it back up, and so it's ready for use. So there we go. This just finished, and actually, we should get a migration report here once this finishes. So let's see. Did it work? Right. All right. So there's my banner. There's our layout change we made, and if we come back to this last record, the records that were originally in production were preserved. So we merged our development changes with our production data. And which is really the whole point of deploy. Additionally, if we're say a deployment just went totally wrong, something failed, there is actually these folders are in fact password protected, so I need to kind of open it up. We're going to store time-stamped backups of every deploy we run. So let's see, it's 6:26 p.m. I'm on Eastern Daylight Time. So this is the prod file before the deploy was ran, and if I open this up, sure enough, you can see there's our old banner. But as you can imagine, there's the record we had that we added before the deployment. So if anything, if some catastrophe happens, we can always roll back to right before the deployment. You might be wondering what's the configuration process like. And we really tried to make that as straightforward as possible. Now, I do want to point out that there is a server-side component to 360Deploy, which comes in the this is the installer that you'll download. You'll get the 360Deploy file, the kind of instructions, as well as a demo solution that is there's nothing in there really. It's just it's like a contacts database. But the installer here, how I like to phrase it is, any server, any FileMaker server that 360Deploy needs to talk to, you need to run the installer on that server. So if you've got a dev server, if you've got 3 prod servers, you need the server-side component installed on all of them. That's how 360Deploy communicates with the server. You know, if it's the dev server, we're getting the dev files. If it's the production server, we're uploading the dev files and running the migration and kind of closing and opening files, all that stuff. So once you have the server-side component installed, let me go ahead and just clear out my configuration so I can show you that from scratch. In the settings, all we're going to need is a license key, which you can get from our store. The post-migration report is optional, but definitely recommended. That's how you'll get that email after the deployment is done. The FM Data Migration Tools are included with 360Deploy, so you don't need to worry about this so much. If there's an upgrade to the migration tools, then you could drop those in here and we'll deploy that to the server. But for the most part, you can just totally ignore those. So step 1 is configure the dev server. Where do our dev files live? So for me, they live locally, and I just need my FileMaker server admin. FileMaker server username and password, as well as the host name where the server is. Using that, we can query the server, get a list of files. As you guys already know, the store sync dev is my dev file, so I'm just going to select that. And we need to capture the account, the username and password for that file. You have kind of 2 options here. You can do full access, or there's a new privilege set in FileMaker called like FM Data Migration or FMDMT, I can't remember the exact wording, but if you have an account with that privilege set, that will work here also. And then if your databases are encrypted, you can enter the encryption keys here. My databases are not. So that's it. Dev server is configured. Let's go configure the production servers. Now, 360Deploy can handle really, I mean, we haven't tested this, but theoretically it could handle an unlimited amount of production servers. Just to kind of, I'm just going to do 1 today. But I think we've got some video of us deploying to like 6 servers at once, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I'm actually deploying to the same server here. My prod server and dev server are the same. So this is a little different from the other panel. This is where we define our database mapping. We want to deploy the dev file on the left to the production file on the right. So it kind of it tries to auto-populate here and be helpful. And in my case, it's not. it's incorrect. I actually want to deploy to the prod file. So you can change that here. You can look at a list of databases on your server. So with the mapping in place, we'll need the account credentials. Here they're the same as dev, as well as the encryption keys are the same as dev, which is no encryption keys pretty much. And that's it. That's the whole configuration process. So close out of prod again. Don't want to get kicked out. So with that in place, right, we're free to run our deployments now. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. You know, I really wanted to make 360Deploy as simple to use as possible, because I mean it should be a really simple process. You know, here are my dev changes, here's my data, let's merge them together, get them hosted on the server. There's lots of little steps in between there, but all of that can be, you know, fully automated so that you don't have to stress out about these little, you know, kind of the tedium. We're hoping to remove that. And there's my deploy report again.